what I wanted to show you on the pre-work, you know what, I'll show you on the slide, right? Is just the discrepancy that we have when all of us, so look, we can make an argument that I sent out pictures to you, right? But you're not going to write a complete estimate when I send pictures to you. Everybody agree with that, right? But what I can tell you is every time I send those pictures out to everybody, right, and I give you all the same exact, you know, directions on writing it, what I get back is like crazy different, right? So I'll show you a slide. Normally what I do is I flip chart that up there so I can show you guys what you actually did. But what I can show you is a class that I did in the past, or classes I've done in the past where we can see the discrepancy, and maybe we can just go around and talk about it a little bit. But let me do this real quick. So within Akzo, this is just cogs in the wheel, right? We teach classes that hit every single one of these cogs, okay? Today we're going to talk about estimating. Within estimating, we're going to talk about writing a consistent estimate, right, which I'm just kind of touching on right now. Yes, I gave you pictures, but the reality of it is we did not look at it in a consistent form because I guarantee you we have different results from every single person who looked at those pictures, right? Okay? We're going to talk about estimating guidelines and approach and key estimating decisions that come up. Judgment time, right? That's always a big subject, right? Everybody still fights insurance companies on judgment time. Yes? No? Maybe? Or they just give you exactly what you asked for every time? No? Okay. I was just making sure Houston wasn't different than Dallas or the rest of the world, right? We're going to talk about assessing, and by the way, just so y'all know, I'm in the middle of rewriting this class with 2 other consultants right now. There's words inside this class that I want removed, like tear down, which is going to come up in this class. I don't like the word tear down. Assessing frame damage needs to be assessing structure damage, just little weird things like that that make me nuts, you know? So when I see those things, I'm probably going to say that they shouldn't be there or whatever, but we're like on our second run. It takes a lot to rewrite a class, but by the end of the year, this estimating class is going to be rewritten, and so that means come back next year and do it again with some little extra stuff. We will talk about key page items and refinish time justification, and when we get to the end, we'll talk about negotiations. We negotiate, right? We spend a lot of time negotiating, so there's a little piece on the end on negotiating, okay? The objectives, hopefully we'll understand the value of writing a thorough, consistent estimate, be aware of various techniques that we can use to create a better or fair, like it says, estimate. And fair, I tell insurance people all the time, because some know me when they see me in shops across the state of Texas, and they kind of look at me like the guy who is trying to get y'all to charge them more money. Does that make sense? But at the end of the day, that's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is get everybody in the industry to bill the insurance company for what they do to the car. Nothing more, nothing less, right? I can make an argument that on every single estimate that you do that we're leaving stuff on the table, right? I do get that we have DRP relations. Everybody in here, are we DRP heavy? I know Mossy is, so you don't have to tell me. I know you have them. Everybody else, you none? I hate to show my bias to that. I'm pro none. I am pro none. Everybody else, are we doing, you guys doing DRPs at your place? Yeah. How many? 3. So pretty heavy, right? So we're dealing with that, right? But would you agree that with our DRPs or any insurance people, if we have some kind of technique or we can show them the how or the why we got to this number or why we need what it is and we can prove it, we have a much better shot at getting it, right? And I would say in our industry, we don't do a very good job at that, right? Maybe it's because we're busy, maybe it's just that we just don't have, maybe we don't know where to go to get the information, right? So we'll hit on some of that stuff, right? In judgment time, you know, if we have a better criteria to talk about judgment time, then we're going to have a lot better shot at actually getting the judgment time. So there's a little exercise on that we'll go through. We'll talk about structure and suspension and mechanical damage. We'll touch on the P pages, and probably during that all the other different things out there that you can go to get information that'll help you write a more consistent, thorough estimate. We will talk about negotiating at the end, and a little bitty piece on scorekeeping possibly at the end if we can get to that, because keeping score is a good thing to do. So in your book, let me talk about the book for a quick second. It's a big ass book, is it not? We are not going to hit every page in that book, just so you know. So for those of you who are sitting there thinking, how in the hell is he going to get us out of here in 6-7 hours with this monster book? It's not. We're not going to hit every page. Matter of fact, probably the last 60, 70 pages of the book are just for you, for reference. And once we get to that, I'll show you what that is and how it can help you. But with that said, I'm going to go through this PowerPoint. The numbers on the bottom of the PowerPoint should basically coincide with your book. Your book has blank spots in it, okay? If we get to a spot where there's a blank spot, and for whatever reason I popped over that, because I do sometimes, right? And you want the answer to that, then say something, right? The best classes isn't me just standing up here talking, though I'm quite capable of talking for this entire 6 hours. Most of the people in here who know me know that. But it's better if you interject and raise your hand and add something to the conversation, right? I don't know everything. I usually learn. Every time I teach a class, I learn from you guys and gals. So please, don't be bashful. If there's something that I say that either A, you disagree with, which is fine, or B, that if you don't understand, whatever, just say something, okay? And we'll address it. So you can, my hope is that the book, you actually take it back to the shop, and maybe at some point in life you might reference back to it, right? Remember that idiot from Akzo said? Let me see if I can find that, right? So in your book, and why I said that, we've got this continuous improvement plan. This shows up in every single class that you'll take that Akzo teaches, right? The thought process is much like yours, which is if you took the time to leave and go to training, right? That if you don't leave here with something that you can go back to your shop and make your life better, then it was an absolute waste of your time to come here, right? As an ex-body shop manager, when I used to send my technicians to ICAR classes, right? And they would come back and I'd be like, how did it go? They'd be like, the guy didn't know nothing. I basically taught the class. It was an absolute waste of my time, boss. I didn't learn crap. That sucks, right? So if you guys leave here with that, then I failed miserably, right? So hopefully we won't have that happen. And I'm not trying to pick on ICAR, by the way. They have gotten a lot better since my day of managing, so I hear that their classes are a lot better. I don't know what your experience is now, but I hear the technicians are coming back with a little bit more information than that. So back to this improvement plan. If you so choose to use it, the idea behind it is that you leave a class with maybe up to 3 things you're going to go back to the shop and work at. And instead of making chicken scratch notes on something like this actually gives you a layout on how you're going to get there, right? So does that make sense to everybody? Again, you can choose to, you can rip it out of your book, set it next to you and use it. You can leave it there. You can not use it. It's entirely up to you, but that's what that is there for. The Sherman antitrust policy. In your book, I think there's about 1.5 pages on the Sherman antitrust policy, but I've shortened it here on this slide, and I'm even going to shorten it more. Really, all the Sherman antitrust for this class is we can't collude. Okay, we can't collude against insurance companies on rates or what we're going to charge or what parts we're going to use or anything like that, right? I honestly have never had that happen in a class like this. I have had it happen in 20 groups, but not so much in an estimating class. So it is totally cool if you want to bash an insurance company to a point, you know what I mean? Or that's not collusion, right? Like if you want to talk about how an insurance company does this or that, we can discuss it. We just can't collude. Does that make sense to everybody? If we start to go down that kind of path, I'll pull us off of it. It's a very unlikely scenario, right? Everybody with me on the Sherman antitrust? We're good? If you get bored, you can read it at break. That's the other thing. I will break probably every 1.5 hours or so. As soon as I see that you floated away, we'll break, and I can tell when you floated. So, with that said, let's get to this estimate that we wrote, right? And like it says, let's review the results of the exercise, and everybody used the same photos, right? I already said that, but we got different results and why. So here's what I want to show you, the photos real quick, and since I don't really have a flip chart, I want to get to that, okay? So what I tend to do when I have a flip chart is I make this grid, right? and I'll go down around the room and I'll talk to each one of you about what you found on your, what you wrote on your estimate, right? And some of you have your estimate with you, you have yours with you. So just flip to the back page where we get our totals real quick, and let's just compare ourselves real quick, right? Again, this is a real data pull from multiple classes that we taught. These are people just like you that gave us the same, that looked at the same pictures you did with the same rates and wrote, this is what they came up with and we charted, right? So, just real quick, like, what did you have for body labor?
I had 19.4.
19.4, right? And see, look here, you're still in the realm, right? My low is 12 and a half. My high is 23, right? Same people just like you looking at it. What'd you have for paint?
12.8.
12.8. Close, right? But look at the discrepancy we have, you know, with people. Do you have any mechanical?
No.
No mechanical. The AC was just going to recharge itself when you pull that upper timer out? Yeah, I guess that's okay. I'm just messing. That's what people are putting in there for mechanical. Frame, do you have anything on structure? No, nothing on structure. That's obviously, look, not everybody puts something on structure. When people have 4 hours on here, what are they putting on here? Set and measure, right? They want to set and measure the car, which, by the way, probably should be done on that car. But we'll talk about that a little bit more. That's something we don't do enough of, by the way, in this industry, is measure structure, right? Just done. And it's coming to the point where we're going to have to measure all the time, but I'll talk about that when we get to the structure piece a little bit more. What did you have for parts total?
2,300.
2,300, right? You're actually, you know, kind of at the high end, right, on that end, right? And your materials and your total? Yeah, just material dollars.
Like $300.
$300. Did you cap yourself? Or
No,
just came out that
384.
way? Okay. When I see an even number, I think of a cap. And I like to say cap because insurance companies don't like to bring cap down. So I like to say. And what was your total? 46, right? So even at the end of the day, she's right in the wheelhouse. Anybody else looking up here and at what you wrote that is like way off from what this chart says, like you're out of the parameter? Anybody write like $9,000 worth of damage on that car or anything like that? I've had somebody do it.
So what you're saying is whatever the pictures are, because I don't have it.
Yeah, you didn't get
It
it.
should, yeah, it
Right,
should
so-
have been somewhere in here.
I'm not even saying that, actually. All I'm really saying is that to get a consistent result, right, we all need to look at it the same way. And I realize this was pictures, and I could make an argument, though, that if I had that car, right, just say for a second I had that car. I know all y'all are looking at your own estimate right now, right? Let's just say I had that car and I had a big ballroom downstairs and I got to split it in half and I put the red car in one side and I sent y'all in one at a time to go look at it. I'm telling you right now, that's the same result I would have, right? Because at the end of the day, we don't really, in most shops, again, I don't know your shops and you may be ahead of the curve, right? But most shops do not have a consistent approach to writing an estimate. What we have is we have someone who got trained, right? And someone taught you, we throw the car out into the shop and we tell our technician to tear it down, right? Which, again, is a bad word, because a tear down to me is just exposing the damage, right? A disassembly or a repair plan or a strategic disassembly is taking all said sub-assemblies apart and finding all the damage, right? So the only way you're really going to get to consistency is if you have an actual spelled out process on how you approach the car from an estimator and how we hold our technicians to a standard of how it gets disassembled. Does that make sense? So, I mean, I would think most of us in here, this is not a repair planning class, but just think about this for a second. I don't know how big your shops are, but most of you have multiple body techs working for you, right? And when you give them, when you dispatch them a job and you ask them to disassemble the job, do you get the same exact disassembly from every body tech that you have there? You don't, do you? Right? Because some of the people that work for us, and so here's the thing, that's our fault, by the way. You know, management, yourself, whatever you want to say. If you're getting an inconsistent disassembly, right, that's just because we haven't laid down the law or the process or set the expectation of how we expect cars to get taken apart, right? So we dispatch it out to Johnny. Johnny takes it apart how Johnny wants to take it apart. And here's the problem. is that technicians, especially in a commission world, right, which most of our techs are getting paid commission in this room, yes, it's a very common thing, especially in the state of Texas, so some of you may be paying salary. Commission, yes, everybody nodding, right? So the thing about commission is that when you dispatch a job to a technician and they're on commission, right, Ed? What are they after?
Hours.
Hours, right? So what's their main concern when they're taking a car apart? Right, it's hours, right? It's how am I going to get to my nut, right? Every one of them has a certain number that they got to run hours, and they'll come up to you and say, boss, dude, I haven't gotten my 60 yet. Whatever their magic number is, right? They all have a magic number, right? All they care about when you give them a high front end hit Honda, Brady job, right? Is getting that front bumper assembly. Is that from you? Yes, that was from you.
No.
All they care about is getting that front bumper assembly off. So why? So they can expose the core support and the rails